Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right then, let's get started on the show this week. Putin rushes to Maduro's help as Trump beats the drums of war in Venezuela. Solve your own mess, Taliban tells Pakistan after peace talks deadlocked in Turkey. And know all about the first passenger aircraft to be built entirely in India. All that and much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. The US-Venezuela confrontation has erupted to new heights and now Russia has entered the fight. A Russian transport plane landed in Caracas, signaling Moscow's direct involvement in the crisis. For Washington, D.C., it's a clear challenge in its own backyard. The US has already committed 10,000 troops, warships, F-35 jets and special forces to the Caribbean. The US says that the buildup is to combat drug traffickers, but critics warn that it looks more like a regime change operation in Venezuela. US President Donald Trump, who once boasted of being the only modern US leader not to start a new war and push for historic peace deals in various parts of the world, now finds himself on the brink of another conflict, this time in Latin America. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin is still fighting a grinding war in Ukraine, but his ambitions are taking flight far beyond Europe. Recently, a Russian military transport aircraft, the same type once linked to Moscow's forces and the shadowy Wagner mercenary group, touched down in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. It sent shockwaves through the US. It signaled that Russia's focus is shifting and that a new front in global power rivalry may be opening in America's own backyard. According to flight tracking data, a transport plane operated by Avicon Zitotrans left Russia on 22nd October. Avicon Zitotrans is a Russian cargo airlines specializing in heavy lift cargo using a fleet of Ilyushin Il-76 aircraft. The aircraft made multiple stopovers in Armenia, Algeria, Morocco, Senegal before finally touching down in Caracas. This route, containing multiple stops, indicates a strategic approach to avoid Western airspace and potential cargo inspections in regions deemed unfriendly. Here it is important to note that Yekaterinburg-based Avicon Zitotrans was added to the US Treasury Department's sanctions list in 2023. The US government accused the company of transporting cargo for Russian defense firms and delivering military equipment and weapons to sanctioned destinations, including Venezuela. The latest Russian move in the Caribbean comes as tensions between Venezuela and the US reach new heights. The US has accused Venezuela of being involved in illegal drug trade. In the last couple of months, the US has deployed 10,000 troops to the Caribbean as part of a military buildup involving warships, F-35 fighter jets, a nuclear-powered attack submarine, and a floating base for special forces. Trump also declared that he has permitted the US spy agency CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. The military buildup is partly directed at Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. The US and its allies accuse him of committing fraud in 2024 elections. They claim the election lacked international standards and transparency. The US has not recognized Maduro's presidency or maintained diplomatic ties with Venezuela since 2019. For his part, Maduro accuses the US of fabricating a war aimed at toppling him. The standoff escalated sharply on 24th October when the US Department of War ordered the deployment of the world's biggest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, to sail to the Caribbean. The Department of War, headed by Pete Hegseth, courted further controversy when the Reuters news agency reported that US military personnel involved in the Latin American operations were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, an unprecedented step that raises suspicions of excessive secrecy. In recent weeks, the US has conducted fewer than a dozen strikes against drug boats in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela, killing 57 people. On 27 October, Hegseth said US forces killed 14 people in strikes on 4 alleged drug boats, this time in the Eastern Pacific. The strikes drew instant condemnation. Some questioned their legality. They warned that the scale of US deployment far exceeds the actual needs of an operation to combat drug trafficking. Mexico said international law must be respected. Some US lawmakers voiced concern over the strikes as well. Despite claiming the targeted vessels were carrying drugs to the US, the Trump government did not produce evidence to support its claims about the boats, their connection to drug cartels, or even the identity of the people killed in the strikes. President Trump's hardline stance is driven not only by an ideological push to remove President Maduro, but also by a strategic aim to secure US influence over Latin America's vital oil resources, especially as China and Russia expand their footprint in the region. China imports large quantities of oil from Venezuela. Venezuela sits close to the Panama Canal, one of the world's most vital shipping arteries, and only about 1,700 kilometers from the US mainland, well within range of medium-range missiles. For Beijing, location is real reason why Venezuela has become one of China's closest partners. Russia maintains a strategic partnership with Venezuela as well. In May 2025, President Putin of Russia signed a strategic partnership and cooperation treaty with President Maduro in Moscow. It entered into force on 27 October. This 25-article agreement elevates ties to a new level, covering energy, mining, trade, and investment. Russia's support to Venezuela is most visible in defense, where it has supplied over $4 billion worth of weapons, including jets, tanks, and drones. Besides a Russian cargo plane landing in Caracas, Russian special forces are reported to have trained Venezuelan troops to counter an invasion or a coup. Speculation is also rife that the Wagner Group has been tasked with President Maduro's security. The Wagner Group is a Russian state-funded private military company that was controlled until 2023 by late Yevgeny Prigozhin, a close ally of President Putin. The Wagner Group is now largely integrated into Russia's military structure as the so-called Africa Corps. In 2024, Wagner-affiliated fighters were spotted training Venezuelan security forces, embedding with local police during post-election protests. Some commentators have suggested that the Wagner Group could offer defensive capabilities to the Venezuelan forces or help President Maduro's potential evacuation to Moscow if a US-backed intervention takes place. It fits Russia's pattern of using mercenaries as deniable assets to extend influence without full military commitment. The Wagner Group's footprint in Venezuela is not new. In 2019, its forces were deployed for several months after Juan Guaido challenged President Maduro's hold on power. In 2023 and 24, a smaller presence of its fighters was again seen for giving security to mining activity and suppression of protests after the July 24 presidential elections. The most recent activity centers on the arrival of a transport plane operated by US-sanctioned company Avicon Zitotrans, which has deep ties to the Wagner Group. This company has in the past ferried weapons, helicopters, and mercenaries to African conflict zones. It carried an undisclosed cargo, speculated to include up to 200 personnel or advisors and 50 tons of weapons. The landing coincided with US strikes on Venezuelan-linked narco vessels and Trump's threats of direct action against President Maduro. Russia's strategic pivot to Latin America notwithstanding, the US is all in to unseat President Maduro. The US-based Associated Press news agency reported that a US agent tried to bribe President Maduro's pilot to divert his plane so that US authorities could capture him. In exchange, US agent told the pilot in clandestine meeting that he would be made a very rich man. The plot was hatched when a person showed up at the US Embassy in the Dominican Republic in April of 2024 when Joe Biden was the US President. But the agent kept in touch with the pilot even after President Trump came to occupy the White House. The agent contacted the pilot again on 7th August, attaching a link to a press release issued by US Justice Department announcing the reward for President Maduro's arrest had risen to $50 million. The Associated Press report detailed a 16-month covert operation that ultimately failed to topple President Maduro. On 24th September, the pilot resurfaced on a widely followed Venezuelan TV show hosted by the country's interior minister. The minister laughed off any suggestion that Venezuela's military could be bought off. Meanwhile, Trump's military maneuvers in the Caribbean have strained relations with the US longtime partners such as Colombia. Recent US military strikes on alleged drug boats killed several Colombian nationals, prompting outrage in Bogota. President Gustavo Petro screamed bloody murder. He said US government strategy breaks the norms of international law. Once a close ally in the US war on drugs, Colombia historically received hundreds of millions of dollars annually in military aid to combat drug gangs. The US military provided training and equipment to Colombia, which led to some milestones, including the killing of drug lord Pablo Escobar in 1993. Today, the long-standing partnership is under unprecedented strain between Bogota and Washington, D.C. over sovereignty, security, and fight against narcotics. Things have come to such a pass that Trump government has imposed sanctions on President Petro and his family, accusing him of failing to curb drug trafficking and allowing cartels to flourish. Trinidad and Tobago is another country that's seen its ties with Venezuela go downhill. The Maduro government suspended a gas deal with Trinidad and Tobago as American warships arrived for joint exercises near the coast of Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island nation of 1.4 million people. Some of its citizens welcomed that government's show of support for the US military campaign in the region, but others worried about getting caught up in a conflict between Washington, D.C. and Caracas. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
Next, we dive into a story that's rippling across South Asia and beyond. It's about deadlocked peace talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban. What started as a glimmer of hope after deadly border clashes has fizzled into finger-pointing and fresh threats. Both sides say that they will resume negotiations at Istanbul in Turkey on 6th November. For now, they have agreed to extend the ceasefire, but Pakistan maintains that the ceasefire is neither open-ended nor unconditional. So what does this breakdown of trust mean for the two neighbors? Let me break it down for you so that you have a better understanding of the issues at hand. In October, tensions exploded along the 2,600-kilometer-long frontier separating Afghanistan and Pakistan, called the Durand Line, which, by the way, Afghanistan does not recognize. The violence erupted following explosions in Kabul on 9th October, which the Taliban authorities blamed on Pakistan. Pakistan claimed that the airstrikes deep inside Afghanistan targeted the hideouts of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan extremist group in both Kabul and Kandahar. The Taliban fired back, attacking Pakistani posts. Dozens died on both sides. It was the worst violence since the Taliban seized Kabul in 2021. The United Nations mission in Afghanistan told French news agency AFP that at least 50 Afghan civilians had been killed and 447 injured. For its part, Pakistan's military said that 23 of its personnel had been killed and 29 others wounded, without detailing civilian casualties. On 19th October, the Taliban and Pakistan agreed to a pause in fighting following talks hosted by Qatar in Doha. In the last week of October, Turkey hosted the second round of talks in Istanbul, again with Qatar's help. The talks were aimed at securing a long-term truce between Afghanistan and Pakistan because unchecked violence could spark a full-blown war, dragging in the US, China and even India. So these were high-stakes, closed-door huddles. Pakistan sent its Defence Minister Khwaja Asif, Information Minister Ataullah Tarar and Major General Shahab Aslam from the Pakistani spy agency ISI's Special Operations Wing. The Taliban delegation was led by Defence Minister Mullah Muhammad Yaqub. Talks were held over a number of days, but deadlock persisted. Pakistan blamed the Taliban for dodging commitments. Kabul pointed fingers right back. It was reported that direct interaction between the two delegations remained limited throughout, with most communications handled through mediators. Even during meal breaks, the two sides barely spoke. Discussions got tense fast. In a heated exchange, the Pakistani general admitted that Pakistan could not stop drone attacks inside Afghanistan because of a secret pact with the US. Now, for the Taliban, the presence of US drones in Pakistan is an irritant. Taliban retorted that the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan was Pakistan's own internal matter. Now, formed in 2007, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, also known by its acronym TTP, is a loose alliance of extremists, mostly Pashtuns from Pakistan, who want to topple the government in Islamabad and impose a strict Sharia or Islamic law. Now, Pakistan uses the term Fitna al-Khawarij to describe the TTP militants. According to a notification issued by Pakistan's Interior Ministry in July 2024, the TTP has hurt Islam and therefore such elements are to be referred to as Fitna al-Khawarij. Now, Pakistan says that the Taliban gives the TTP safe havens, training camps and even ideological cover. A quick word about the Pashtuns before we move on. The Pashtuns are an ethnic group living in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They share a common cultural identity. Now, they are the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan and the second largest in Pakistan. The Doordarshan line, which is the de facto border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, divides the Pashtun population between the two countries, and that has been a source of friction ever since. And therefore, the concept of a unified Pashtunistan has been a recurring theme in regional politics. Talking of the border, it's been closed now for weeks on end. News of the deadlock talks was met with despair. A vehicle spare parts trader in Pakistani border town of Chaman told French news agency AFP that the closure was very concerning for businesses. The Pakistani delegation reacted with fury to the failure of the talks. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif threatened to obliterate the Taliban in a dramatic escalation of rhetoric. Minister Asif said on X, and I quote, "Pakistan does not require to employ even a fraction of its full arsenal to completely obliterate the Taliban regime and push them back to the caves for hiding," unquote. Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar said truce negotiations have concluded for now in Istanbul without a workable solution because apparently the Afghan side kept deviating from the core issue on which the dialogue process was initiated. He accused the Taliban negotiators of engaging in deflection and playing a blame game. For its part, the Afghan side said that it had no control over the Pakistani-Taliban. Abdul Mateen Khani, a spokesperson for Afghanistan's Interior Ministry, told Afghan media outlet Ariana News that any Pakistani provocation would be met with a response that will serve as a lesson for Pakistan and a message for others. What has equally upset Pakistan was Taliban's announcement of a dam on the Kunar River. Just days before the talks began, Taliban's supreme leader Maulvi Hibatullah Akhundzada green-lighted the plan, aiming to restrict flow of water to Pakistan after deadly clashes along the Durand Line. Taliban Deputy Information Minister Mohajir Farahi shared the information on X. Now, this echoed India's decision to put the Indus Waters Treaty with Pakistan in abeyance as a retaliation for the 22nd April terror attack at Pahalgam in India. Now, building a dam on the Kuna River would mean reduced flow of water, which could cause drought in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab provinces of Pakistan. The Kuna River is a tributary of the Kabul River. The 480-kilometer-long Kuna River originates in the Hindu Kush Mountains near the Brog Hill Pass close to Pakistan. It then flows south into Afghanistan, running through the Kunar and Nangarhar provinces before emptying into the Kabul River. In Pakistan, this river is known as the Chitral. The Kabul River, into which Kunar merges, forms the most significant transboundary water system between the two nations. It feeds into the Indus River near Attock, serving as a crucial source of water for irrigation and agriculture in Pakistan's northwestern provinces. Taliban's Foreign Minister Maulavi Amir Khan Muttaqi, who visited India in October, appreciated India's development support over the years. A joint statement issued towards the end of Muttaqi's visit said that both sides underscore the importance of sustainable water management.
We had the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan. He visited India recently. As part of the visit, we had issued a joint statement between both countries. This particular joint statement clearly emphasizes that India stands ready to support all efforts of Afghanistan that are directed towards sustainable management of water resources, including hydroelectric projects. You also would know that between the two countries, there has been a long history of cooperation on water matters. The Salma Dam, for example, is a perfect example of this cooperation, which is today called India-Afghanistan Friendship Dam.
Now, the Indian diplomat did not stop there. He rubbed it in by saying this.
Pakistan is infuriated with Afghanistan exercising sovereignty over its own territories. Pakistan seems to think that it has the right to practice cross-border terrorism with impunity. Its neighbors find it unacceptable. India remains fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of Afghanistan.
According to latest reports, Pakistan and Taliban are likely to resume talks in Istanbul at Turkey's request. A statement issued by Turkey said that Pakistan has agreed to continue a conditional ceasefire with the Taliban. Also, that both sides will resume talks in Istanbul on 6th November. And we'll keep you posted on the outcome of those talks. A new chapter is unfolding in India-Russia relations, and this time in the world of aviation. India's Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Russia's United Aircraft Corporation are set to co-produce a passenger plane in India. But as Aman Kumar Himanshu reports, it's not just about planes, it's about power, partnership and policy taking flight.
On 27th October, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited signed an MOU with Russia's United Aircraft Corporation to produce the SJ-100 civil commuter aircraft. This is the first time a complete passenger aircraft will entirely be produced on Indian soil. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh termed the signing of the MoU as a landmark step for Indian civil aviation. He said that its manufacturing in India will strengthen the private sector and create direct and indirect jobs in country's aviation industry. The SJ-100, which was previously known as the Sukhoi Superjet 100 or SSJ-100, is a twin-engine, narrow-body regional jet. The aircraft is designed to accommodate up to 103 passengers and boasts a flight range of 3,530 kilometers. Its operational flexibility includes low operating cost and an ability to function in all climatic zones, and that includes temperatures ranging from -55 degrees to 45 degrees. Under this agreement, HAL will gain the rights to manufacture the SJ-100 for Indian customers. The aircraft is expected to play a key role in improving regional air connectivity. The Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, which means Let the Common Citizen of India Fly, is a regional airport development program of the Indian government. Launched in 2016, it aims to boost regional air connectivity across India's Tier 2 and 3 cities by making flying affordable for more people. The MoU is also being seen as a big push for making India self-reliant. India aims to not just buy but build planes. HAL's last such project was the Avro HS-748, a British-designed turboprop airliner licensed and assembled in India from 1961 to 1988. According to HAL, over the next decade, India will need more than 200 jets of this category for regional connectivity, along with an additional 350 aircraft to serve international destinations across the Indian Ocean region. India and Russia signed the pact just weeks ahead of President Vladimir Putin's visit to India. It highlights India's growing engagement with Russia. Incidentally, HAL's Russian partner has been sanctioned by the US and its allies such as the European Union, the UK, Canada, Switzerland and Japan. The sanctions were imposed in June 2022 following the start of Ukraine-Russia conflict. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.